Hello and welcome to this workshop, How to Make 2023 Your Best Year Ever. My name is Katrina Horn. I'm a life coach and I can help you if you want more out of life than simple routine and comfort. I'm thrilled if you're here with me live. And even if you're not live, you can still make a comment, but you can only make a comment below. If you're here live, you can actually write in the chat. So feel free to do that if you want to participate, if you want to ask questions, or if you've got a comment. So let's just dive into the content. But before we do that, I just wanted to make sure we are on the same wavelength, because maybe you're thinking, well, how can I make 2023 the best year ever? Because there's so many things I can't control, right? I can't control whether I get a promotion. I can't control whether my dog gets run over by a car. I can't control whether I find the love of my life this year. There's so many things I can't control. So frankly, Katrina, how can you say that I can make 2023 the best year ever? I can say that because I'm not into all or nothing thinking. And this is what you're doing if you think that because I can't control everything, it must mean that I can't control anything. Do you see the difference here? So, right, you can't control whether your dog gets run over by a car in the street, but you can control so many other things in your life. So what I'm going to talk about today is the things or are the things that you can, I don't like to say control, but that you can influence. And I think that today, really, what I am talking about is how you can influence your subconscious. And instead of thinking about, well, what do I need to do in 2023 to have the best year ever? I want to invite you to think about, well, who is it I can be? Who can I be? Who is the woman who is living my dream life? And of course, it's you, right? There's no question of that. But I think it's the best version of you. It's not a version who's sitting there thinking, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't really control this. I don't know what I want, right? It's not that version of you. It's the version, it's the best version. And that's what really we're going to look into. And that can be a little bit daunting. And to make it easier for you, I've created a little bit of distance between you, who you are right now, and the person who's living your best year, 2023. I've created that distance through an analogy or through a metaphor, and that is looking at your life as a book. And if your life is a book, imagine you being the author. An author gets to decide everything, doesn't she? Like she can decide what characters are in the book, what they do, what happens to them, the action they take, all of that gorgeous stuff. And if, for a moment, just the time of this workshop, if you looked at your life through the lens of you as the author writing a book, what would change then? I think immediately you would feel much more powerful, right? And that is really where I want you to be. I want you to be in that place where you think, oh, actually, there are lots of things I can decide on, right? And I think the advantage of deciding, whereas just reacting, and when I say decide, I like to talk about design. You can call it planning, but I really like to think of it as design. If you design your year 2023, what would you have it look like? You have to get a little bit clear on what it is you want out of it, right? And I think you are much more likely, statistically speaking, of getting what you want out of 2023 if you are clear on what it is, instead of just getting along and looking what's offered and perhaps partaking, perhaps not. You see what I mean? So it's about direction and it's about intention. And I think these two things are really what builds momentum in our lives. So when I say 2023, your best year ever, it's not to compare, it's just to get you to feel that life gets better and better. So maybe 2022 wasn't great for you, right? And that is what it is. However, I want you to start thinking about 2023 not based on what happened in 2022 or 21 or 20 or in your past, but let's try to design it from the place of where it is you want to be, from that place where you are living your dream life. So I hope you're with me on this. If you are, well, why don't you grab the workbook I designed for you? I try to make it look pretty, so let me know in the chat whether you think it is pretty. You can download it via a link just here below. And I think also I could pop perhaps the link into the chat in case you're not seeing it. This is just my second YouTube live, so I'm not sure that I really am in full control of everything. But anyway, I hope you can hear me. Feel free to make a comment. I'd love to hear whatever you think. And unless you interrupt me, I just get on with the content. So, how to make 2023 your best year ever. My first point is that you can become even more intentional. So, become intentional or become more intentional. For me, one of the things I want to focus on in 2023 is becoming even more intentional because I'm already quite intentional, but I think I could become so even more. And here I'm going to invite you to work on that intention through the distancing, through looking at yourself as the author of the book of your life. And right now we're looking at one specific chapter, which is chapter 2023. So we're not looking to the previous chapters. We're not looking yet into the chapters that are to come. We're just focusing on this one chapter. And my first question to you is, if your life was a book, what chapter would you be living or writing now? What would be the title of this chapter? What title could you find for this year, this chapter of your life? And in the workbook, I suggested a few things. I suggested from tears to triumph, how, and then you insert your name, turn the tables. That is if you desire change. So I could say from tears to triumph, how Katrina turned the tables. And this is in case you have got some previous past aches and pains and sadness that you want to completely change in 2023. You can have a look at how that evolution happened in 2023, where you left the tears behind and you started embracing the triumph. Another suggestion is the day, and here you insert your name, the day you decided to create her own business. The day Katrina decided to create her own business. Well, I already did. Maybe that's a dream of yours. So that could be another title. Or if you want to have a sort of educational aspect to it, you can say the lesson Katrina learned from a year of success. The lesson I learned from a year of success. That sort of sets you up for success, doesn't it? It gets your subconscious to be thinking about, right, so what would create success in 2023? Or for those of you who know me, you know that I want to live in a chateau. So I could say the 3 steps Katrina took to move into her chateau. Right? And I thought that was going to be the most inspiring title for me. But reading over this workbook before coming live here with you, I thought I actually really like the title of The Lesson Katrina Learnt from a Year of Success. All right. So I'm sure you could find a lot more inspiring titles for you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying you love the workbook. Please make it really personal. These are just ideas. And what would be ideal is if you would fall in love with the title, because that will be your guideline throughout the year. So can you see how, if you've got the lesson Katrina learnt from a year of success, can you see how my subconscious and everything I do will be geared towards success? I'll be looking out for success. So if I persuade my subconscious that 2023 is going to be a year of success and I'm going to learn a lesson, well, then that's so much more probable, that's so much more likely to happen. If you say from tears to triumph, you're recognizing that you had some difficulties in the past, but now how are you going to turn the tables? And you're going to write that down. So you'll be moving towards that. If I take my 3 steps, the 3 steps I took to move into my chateau, well, I'm going to detail those steps. So let me use that as an example. If I had to choose 3 steps to move into my chateau, I would say how Katrina put her house on the market and sold it successfully for double the amount she was expecting. Right? That feels good to me. Then she went on a tour of all of France to choose her perfect chateau. Right? Thirdly, she easily and elegantly got a mortgage for the remaining sum for her chateau. And on the 31st of December, she moved in. Do you see what I mean? And the reason I'm doing that is just to feel the inspiration of it. And of course, I can't guarantee any of it. But then I don't need guarantees to take action. Maybe you do, but that's a different story. And we can talk about that, of course, if you've got some questions. But I don't need a guarantee to take action. So I know that this will stimulate me. So once I've decided, oh, wow, these are my 3 steps. Let me just start it. How can I put my house on the market in a really stimulating way, or shall I say honoring way, in a way where it's likely to get the best price? So I can start thinking about that. I can start feeling into it. But more importantly, as you shall see as we move on in the workbook, more importantly, who is the woman who puts her house up for sale? Who is that woman? And then I start practicing being her. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I want to know what the title you chose for your chapter 2023. What is that title? Please put it in the chat. What title did you choose? I'd love to know. What could it be? And you're free to change it, right? This is work in progress. We're just practicing. We're completely just practicing. But moving on with the practice, let's look at who the heroine is. So I like to put the who before the how. Often in self-help, often in personal development, we think of action steps. So we think action, action, action. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? But we forget to think about who can I be? Who is that person? Who is that wildly successful person Who is that person who finds love? Who is she? And I think that it's at least as fast to our dream life to think about who we're being than thinking about what we're doing, because who we are, we can start practicing right now. Right? We can't necessarily have what it is we want to have. We can't necessarily do what it is we want to do. Let's say you're planning to travel around the globe. Well, till you are on your journey, well, you can't experience it, but you can start being the person who does it. So, in my example, the person who's putting her house on the market and who's touring the whole of France visiting chateaus for sale, who is that person? I think she's got elegant luggage. I think she's got gorgeous clothes in her luggage. I think she's really organized, and she's much more of a businesswoman, really, than a person looking for a place to live. Do you see? I can already start being that. I can start having gorgeous clothes. I can start having luxury luggage. I can start a lot of things. I can start being that person. If you want to attract the love of your life into your life, well, what can you do? You can start a lot of doing and sign up for dating agencies or befriend random people on the internet, right? Or you can start thinking about, well, who is the woman, who is a version of me, who is living that relationship, who's experiencing all of that? Who is she? Is she the one who's lying around on the sofa eating chocolate? Maybe not. Do you see what I mean? This is a sort of exaggerated example. But when we think of the who is the person who is living our dream life? Well, then there's something we can change right now. And the magic of changing is as soon as we start changing, so many other things snowball through our lives and create a lot of other change. Are you with me on that? Let me check the chat. So, coming back to the workbook, my question number 2, or the section number 2, is who is the heroine of this chapter? The heroine of 2023. Who is the person who's going to make a success of 2023? Who is the person for whom this year is the apotheosis of everything? So, if you were literally writing a book, who would the heroine be? And it is you, of course, but what version of you would that be? What version? And I just talked a little bit about the version for me, and that would be definitely the confident businesswoman, because when I'm moving into my chateau, it's not just for me to have a whole chateau to myself, it's so that I can share it with a lot of people. So it's part of my business. So I really feel that very strongly. I think I'll have to step up as a businesswoman. So that businesswoman is super organized, right? So maybe, well, this is coming up for me. Maybe I need to get like a million times more organized. Maybe I want to have a look at how I can get to be extremely organized. So I can start being that already now. We can only change up to the limit of who we think we are. So if I think, Katrina, you can't really be that super duper confident, extremely organized businesswoman, well, then I will always self-sabotage. If I can persuade myself that I am actually that businesswoman, if I get extremely organized in my business, if everything is really streamlined, then I can allow myself to believe that I am that woman. Do you see what I mean? So I'm practicing being that woman already so that I'm ready for when the real thing happens. But it's really happening little by little all the time. So does that speak to you? being who that person is. Thank you. Thank you for telling me. So I like to think about how I can be before I do. And I think really self-development has got a lot to look into here. Maybe it's just sort of a masculine thing. I see a lot of coaches talking about what you need to do. But I think really the magic is in who you're being as you're doing it. I think that's really the sweet spot. But if you need some inspiration to think about who or how that version of you would be, think about a person you admire. Who do you admire? Can you think of anybody? And it could be your cousin, it could be a YouTuber, it could be a colleague, it could be anybody. It really could. Who would that be? And then name a few qualities that you admire in this person. And I've recently, I think I talked to you about this last month, possibly, but I'm really focusing on people I used to qualify as being really invested in themselves, like taking themselves seriously, I said. How can they take themselves so seriously used to be my reaction. And that was a bit of a judgment, or that was a complete judgment. But knowing that I judge them, I know that there's something in it for me. There's a nugget here for me to see. And I believe that when we judge people, it's because we've got a wound we need to heal that is exactly on the same level, which is exactly the same thing. So I'm looking into now, what is it about these people who take themselves so seriously that they start a YouTube channel about themselves? Like I've come across several people who are just like being themselves in their everyday lives and talking about it on YouTube and having tons of followers. And I think, why is that intriguing to me? What is it in it? And I think it's because, well, maybe I could be more so. Maybe I could be more me, right? So I admire the quality in people who take themselves seriously, who love themselves so much that they're just being unfiltered themselves. And what about you? Any person you admire, and what are the qualities that maybe you admire in them? Is it their gumption? Is it their resilience, their courage, their creativity? And once you have pinpointed 3 or 10, try them on for yourself as you would a dress, right? How do they fit on you? How well do they fit? So if you said that you admired somebody who's being courageous, now, how would that look on you? What would that look in your life if you were being extremely courageous? What would that look like? Think of it. So what you could be thinking when you think of a person you admire, you think of their qualities, then you start thinking thoughts that don't serve you, like, oh, I'm not as courageous as she is, I'm not as beautiful, I'm not as accomplished. And those comparisons don't serve. And to give you an image around comparison, I just want you to think about this other image or analogy. Think of you running towards your best life, your dream life, in a race. You're running towards your goal. And if you're a sporty person, maybe you want to think about running a marathon or running maybe something a bit quicker so you don't have so much time. Maybe, should we say, 100 meters? So imagine running those 100 meters. If you've seen them doing that on television, well, you know that they're not looking to the sides all the time to compare where they are in relation to other people, right? They just know that if they want to win, if they want to get into their goal, like they have to just look ahead. They're not looking to the sides. Do you see what I mean? And I think that's what we do when we are comparing ourselves. We are looking to the sides to see, oh, what are other people doing? Where are they at? And it's completely not useful. It's actually counterproductive, I think, because you waste your time looking to the sides, don't you? It's not going to help you get to where you want to be. So let's just focus on where it is you want to be and let's just go there directly. So whenever you've got a thought that doesn't serve you, I'm going to invite you to rethink it. So we've got a subconscious mind that will believe just about anything we tell it, sometimes with a bit of insistence. But if you tell yourself, oh, I'm not beautiful, or I'm not accomplished, well, why would you choose to think a thought like that? It's not serving you. Let's say you want to find the love of your life. Well, if you think, I'm not beautiful, how is that going to help you find the love of your life? Why not think, I'm not beautiful in the traditional sense, but here's what I've got, right? Or maybe you can start thinking, even if I'm not 23, I'm still extremely beautiful for my age. Or when I dress up, I can look really sexy. Do you see? You try changing your thoughts around it. And then I think, really, when we are into this self-image thing, if you could start dressing up as the woman who's extremely sexy and living her dream life with a partner, if you could start dressing like her and being like her, well, I think you're going to be a lot more likely to find that person to share your life with. So it's really about being the best version of yourself so that you can live your best life. So when you're looking at the qualities in people you admire, make sure it's a quality and not something they have that you haven't got, but that you want. So if you say, I don't have as much money as she does, it's not about what she's being. And what we're talking about now is not how you can get a heap of money. Person who is ready to possess a heap of money and manage it well and be wealthy. What does that wealthy version of you look like? What is she thinking? Right? She's certainly not thinking fearful thoughts of how she can pay the bills tomorrow. That's for sure. Right? And the more you practice being whatever version of it, of you think you want to be able to live your dream life, well, go ahead. Think those thoughts. Practice thinking them. It's just a question of practice. And as you're practicing that, for instance, I would like to be more elegant because I think that chatelaines, that is women living in chateaus, they are extremely elegant. So I can start practicing being that already. I can start today. So that means I have to get dressed up nicely every day. Even if I'm lounging about at home, well, maybe I don't want to be wearing sweaty, old, worn out tracksuits or holey t-shirts or anything like that. Maybe I want to have something chic, but relaxing to wear. You see what I mean? I can start being elegant right now. So I'm practicing being the person ahead of time. And I think, well, for me, this is so much more fun than having to go out there and get what it is you want. Right? It's so much more fun practicing being differently, trying on new characteristics, trying on new qualities and feeling them out for yourself. Well, what would it look like if I was extremely elegant? Well, I think that I would get up in the morning and I would put on makeup right from the morning. I think, well, another idea I'm toying with, let me know if you find that fun too, is that I think I can actually get dressed for the night. Like traditionally, I'd just be putting on the same pajamas. It would just be like what was available easily. And I think, well, what if I became the person who's really observant and intentional about what she wears at night? What would that look like? Would that be fun? So that's something you can play around with these things. And I think a great way to find out about what it is we want so that we can start practicing it is having a look at the people we admire, but also the exact opposite, the people we criticize, the people we judge. Because if we judge them, as I hinted at earlier, um, what did I want to say? If we look at people we envy, then have a look at why we envy them. And instead of criticizing them, instead of judging them, well, why don't we try it on for ourselves? Why don't we admit that actually, if I'm triggered by, let's say, that woman being so full of herself, like thinking she's so important, and think so embodying, I don't know whether you see what that means. It's a little bit like a character in a play or in a film who plays a character, like they're embodying a different person to whom they are. And what I'm suggesting is not that you become fake, right? Far from me to suggest that. What I'm saying is you can wear a Chanel dress your way without being fake. So other people will wear the same dress differently. They will look different and they will feel different, but you've got your way of wearing it. Do you see what I mean? So you can try on qualities of other people being you, but with that added quality. So that's what I mean when I say try them on for yourself. And if you can see that they don't fit, well, do you want to make them fit? And if so, how could you make them fit? So being elegant to me, well, what does that mean? I wouldn't like to wear extremely high heels all of the time. Maybe I'd like a few pairs, like one or two, I don't know. But even though I find it extremely elegant, I just wouldn't enjoy wearing those high heels. They're uncomfortable. See what I mean? So there are some things I'm not willing to do that don't feel good to me, and that's okay. But what would feel good to you? How could you? I could wear elegant shoes that were not high heels. That would be perfectly all right. So how can you make them fit? Do you have to modify anything? If you want to be more courageous and you look at people who are so courageous, you might think, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. So let's say, like the other night, I watched a video with a girl who swam in extremely cold temperatures from Finland. So it was like you have to break a hole in the ice and then swim around in it. And I wouldn't want to do that. But what I did admire in her was her desire to reach her limit somehow, to see up to where she could go. So I can say, okay, so I want to try on that quality. I'm not willing to get into icy water. So how could I? What would that look like in my life? How can I get to my limit? So maybe that could be doing some sports. At a moment, I trained myself to go jogging. I wanted to run 10 kilometers in an hour. So I know I can do that. What could be the next step? How can I see where my limits are? Right? Maybe it could be meditation. How long can I meditate? That would be a fun challenge for me. Maybe not for you, but do you see what I mean? You can take something that somebody does and try it on for yourself. It might not be the same thing, but what would it look like in your life? So please feel free to interrupt me if you've got questions. Can only see this makes complete sense, which is good to know. So let me know. Otherwise, I'll just move on. Another way of finding out really what you want to be more of, what your best version of you is to ask yourself, how do you want other people to see you? How do you want other people to see you? What other qualities you'd like for them to recognize in you that you believe you already embody? And I've got another fun exercise. I didn't put it in the workbook because you really don't need a workbook to do it. But this exercise is about loving yourself a bit more. I'm all about self-love. I think it's really at the basis, feeling worthy for living our dream life. So if you want to really recognize your values and your qualities more profoundly, this is an exercise for you. I'll just sum it up briefly for you, and you could do it some other time. You get a photo of yourself that you like. So for me, I was just thinking that would be my YouTube photo. Maybe you can see it somewhere here. Like I'm quite smiley on it. So I would put that, I would take that photo, I would print it out so that I could stick it on a piece of physical paper. If you don't want to do it on paper, I'm sure you could do it on the computer or on your phone, but having your own photo in the center of something where you can write around it. A piece of paper, a cardboard, whatever. So you've got your photo in the middle, and around the photo, you start putting in some of your best qualities. Really, some of the times where you thought, oh, I was at my best here. So little keywords or just naming qualities. Like, I think I'm a kind person and I would like to be thought of as kind. So I'm always making sure that I am as kind as I can possibly be. So I would put in kind. I would put in competent. And I would have a lot of examples to illustrate that. So you have your photo in the middle of a piece of paper, and you've got a lot of positive qualities around your photo, and then you could just put it out wherever you want and enjoy it whenever you've got a moment. So that ties in a little bit with our point in the workbook about how do you want other people to see you? How do you want them to see you? I want people to see me as reliable, fun, dependable, playful. I want them to see me as relatable, good company, for instance. And what do you want them to know you can do? What do you want them to know that you can do, if anything? Or you could ask yourself, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, I want to be remembered for having created beauty. Beauty is extremely important to me. So I want to be always focused in my life on where it is I can create more beauty. And that is something I wouldn't mind being remembered for if people want to remember me. But if they don't, I'm not really bothered. So, right. What do you want to be remembered for? Your excellent sense of humor? The books you wrote? The people you helped? What is it? So these are more keys into the best version of you, the version of you who's living 2023, because you've dialed that in, right? You cannot control what happens, as I said at the beginning. What you can control is how you're being, knowing that I don't like the word control because it sort of has a graspy feeling to it. And I think there's so much more fun in not controlling very much, but that's my opinion. So I'm moving on in the workbook to the embodiment of this person. And I want you to imagine that we're in January 2024, so 1 year from now. Your book has been published and you're now being interviewed about this specific pivotal chapter of your book that is this year, where the heroine, you were particularly resourceful, decisive, and confident. Imagine, I saw an interview by, what's her name, J.K. Rowling, and she was sitting in a chateau in Scotland. I shouldn't call it a chateau. It would be a castle if it's in Scotland, right? She was sitting there, and the surroundings were just gorgeous, and she was looking very sophisticated, and the whole experience of just watching her was very enjoyable. I can't remember what she said, but I'm sure she said something really interesting. But imagine, I mean, I would imagine myself in that situation being interviewed about this year. So the interviewer asking, so tell me about your heroine. What would you say the qualities were that allowed your heroine, Katrina, to move into her chateau? And think about that whole scene, that being in that spot where you're being interviewed by a journalist. I don't know whether you've already been interviewed, but if you have, it might help you. If not, you just need to imagine it. You can do that on a walk. Or if you want even more insight to where your belief is not with you, where you're not believing what you're saying, you can record yourself. If you record yourself or film yourself, even better, you can immediately see where you are in disbelief of what you are saying. So let's imagine I was answering the questions. The question of the interviewer who asked me, what would you say the qualities were that allowed Katrina to move into her chateau? I would say she was extremely determined. She was motivated by living her best life and serving more people. She was motivated by beauty. She was extremely organized. And here I might hesitate a little bit because I've really got a weak spot on organization, right? Oh, in a certain sense, when it's not practical, I'm really disorganized. So if I was recording myself, I might be able to spot that, there's something in all this that I don't believe. I believe I'm determined. I believe that I'm motivated by beauty and serving more people. I believe a lot of things. I'm in full belief of them. So my subconscious is on board. It's not saying, ooh, right? But if I say, oh, she was able to do so because she has got 100 million euros in the bank. I wouldn't believe that because that's not the case, right? So that I would be able to spot my disbelief, and I would know this is where I need to work. This is what I need to focus on because there's a lack of belief. I'm not believing this fully. So moving on. So you can decide ahead of time whether you want to answer these questions in writing or whether you want to record them. And recording them is very insightful. And again, when we do this, it's not to judge ourselves. It's just as a learning experience, because obviously we can only change through compassion and love, right? We can't change by being scolded, by being blamed and shamed, right? That's why you can't lose weight telling yourself you're a fat slob. It doesn't work. So, what else is there? Yes, the interviewer is asking, can you tell us in one word what made her decide to change? And just one word, what would have you change 2023? What would make that the best year ever? What change would happen? What change would subtly inside of you completely change the game? It could be something like worthiness, deservedness. For me, I think it's time, because I can't be bothered waiting anymore. Like, I'm done with waiting. So my word would be time. I don't feel that time is running out, but I do feel, as I'm 55, that if I don't get to live that dream life, like the next stage of my dream life, well, then what's the point? I really want it now. Do you see what I mean? I'm really ready. I feel really ready. So, okay, I'm ready. I'm being the person who's living in a chateau. Almost, I can see a few things here, but I'm very near to be the person who is living in a chateau. So I feel almost ready. So I want it to happen soon. Do you see what I mean? So for me, that word would be time. And then the last question is, would you say Katrina could do anything she put her mind to? And I would go, yes. And here, if you're recording yourself, you can tell whether you really believe this or not. Do you really believe that you can do anything you put your mind to? Doesn't mean you can do anything, because you might not want to do everything, right? But the things you want to do you believe you can do them? Do you? Do you really? And I would love for you to believe that you completely can. You really can decide right now to make 2023 your best year ever. Through the things you can influence, through the things you can decide on ahead of time, through the reactions to whatever happens. Right? You can decide on that. You can't control a lot of things in life, but what you can do is decide how you want to react to what happens. Let's say my house burnt down. Well, I'm sure I'd feel very, very sad, but ultimately, I would want to react to it in an empowered way. And I wouldn't be saying, oh, wow, I've lost my house. Oh, what can I do now? Poor me. Well, I might spend some time there, but I want to get out of that place. I don't want to be feeling like a victim in my life. I want to see, okay, my house burnt down. Even though it doesn't feel good right now, maybe this is what will spur on this change, or maybe this is what will empower me. Maybe this is what I would already be starting to think of this as, how can I react to this, either to learn something, but here I don't think I'd be able to learn a lot, but how can I use this experience really to up level all the rest? And if you do want to make 2023 your best year ever, think about that best version of you and your decisions from that best version. Don't make your decision based on your past. Maybe in the past something dreadful happened to you, and I'm all for healing those wounds, but let's heal them moving towards our future. Let's not keep poking at them, right? Let's heal them and move on. So when you make your decisions from your future, I could be saying to myself, my house burnt down in 2023, but fortunately, I'm now living in a chateau. So am I that bothered? Not really. This is a bit extreme, but really, when you think of it, how is what is happening to me, how is that empowering me? So even if my dog got run over by a car, maybe I could learn from it that I really need to either teach my dog not to go on the street, or I need to keep it on a leash, or whatever. Maybe it was so that I could travel the world, which I wouldn't be able to do with a dog, you know. And it sounds as if I'm saying that you should immediately start persuading yourself that everything that happens to you is good. And I'm thinking more in the long term. I'm thinking, yes, let's grieve. Let's grieve for the dog. Let's grieve for the house. Let's be present with all our emotions, even the sad ones, even the ones that make us cry, even the ones that make us feel dreadful. Let's just be present with them. And the more present we can be with them, the quicker we will heal. What I'm referring to is avoiding years later to return to whatever happened to us and use that against ourselves. If I used my house burning down as an excuse for never wanting to invest in another house, that would be sad, wouldn't it? If I used my lover leaving me as an excuse for never wanting another one, or never wanting another relationship, or never wanting to be intimate with anybody, that would be sad too, wouldn't it? If I started telling myself the story, you can never have a beautiful house again because look what happened, it burned down. Or if I start telling myself, you can never have another lover because your lover died or left you or whatever happened. Do you see what I mean? You can even make something mean that you're unlovable, which is just madness because this is not your best version. Your best version is completely lovable. And you have to remind yourself. I'm wondering whether I'm making sense. Now, let me know. Let me know. And also, I want you to consider if you really want to make 2023 your best year ever, what if it could be enjoyable? What if it could feel easy and effortless? What if it was really about you being more you having more fun? What if that was really what it was about? What if it was not about hard work or achieving projects or anything like that? What if it was just about being playful and having a good time? What if that was true? Wouldn't that be gorgeous? I think that's really what it's about. But anyway, I'd be curious to know whether you've got any questions or comments on all of this. And as we're nearing the hour, I'm going to get towards the end. So let me know if you've got any questions. What I want to say about fear, if you think, I'm not sure I can really pull it off, I'm not sure that I could really make 2023 my best year ever, because if I started being extremely elegant, that would feel uncomfortable. Like I talked about trying on a Chanel dress, and you would look the way you'd look in it, and somebody else would look how she would look. But it's going to perhaps feel uncomfortable for you wearing that dress because maybe your self-image doesn't really match up with it. Maybe you don't see yourself as a person wearing Chanel dresses. Maybe it's something you have to grow into. So anything you're going to try out that is a change will first feel uncomfortable. And it being uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's dangerous. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. It doesn't mean that it's inauthentic. Because there are so many versions of you. And I think we sometimes believe that we were born a certain way, and authenticity is being as we were born, but then you are only born as a potential, right? And that potential is up to you to develop. It's up to you to choose. And I really believe we can choose. Of course, we can't choose whether we're tall or short, but there are so many things we can choose, right? It's not all or nothing. So what can you choose? Then please try it on. See how it fits. And it will not feel comfortable straight away. Just like the Chanel dress, it might not feel comfortable because you think, oh, this is not me. So what if it didn't feel comfortable, but it was really fun? What if it started shifting so many things in your subconscious that would lead you on to other things? Like, I'm a big fan of uncertainty because I think there's so much fun in not knowing what's going to happen, in not having everything like planned out, in not just being there and thinking, oh, what could happen now? I love that. What if you could start getting used to uncertainty so that uncertainty wouldn't be threatening anymore? What if you could just think the opposite of uncertainty is certainty, perhaps? But knowing everything is actually very boring, isn't it? And again, if you look at my analogy with the book, reading a book about somebody who's living in a comfort zone, who's only having routine to deal with, I mean, who would want to read that book? Who would want to live that life, is what I'm saying. I think we envelop ourselves in comfort and routine when we're fearful of something, but we really were made to live. We really were made to try out things. We really were made to explore all our possibilities. So I think being authentic is not so much returning to yourself as you were when you were a baby. Sometimes we go back into our childhoods to see what we lost on the way and whether there's something we want to bring back. But I think we're really permanently creating ourselves. We are always in the becoming. And some people don't like the word becoming, because I already am. And of course, we already are something, otherwise, we couldn't be it more. So I like to think about ourselves as being born with potential. Sorry. And that potential is there for us to use or not. Do you see what I mean? And what if we really could choose and try on a lot of things? And having tried them on, we could also discard them. Like if you tried on the Chanel dress and you didn't like it, you could just say, no, thank you. I've done that several times. I've tried something on and I think, no, this is not for me. I don't enjoy this. So I've tried it on for a while, right? You can't just try it on like dipping yourself in ice cold water. You might not like it the first time, but maybe if you only try it once, you won't really know whether after 3 times you might like it a little bit more. Do you see what I mean? So we have to try out different things if we want to find out what it is we really love. And I love the idea of looking at what other people are doing, not to judge them or not to be envious or jealous, but if we turn that around and use it as inspiration, how fab is that? How fab is that? So let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't got any questions or comments, you're being very quiet, then I shall just be on my way. Like today, we woke up, there was a storm, and there was a power cut for I don't know how long. So I'm very happy just to be with you here with the electricity and everything. So you never know. That is uncertainty. I didn't know whether I'd be able to join today, but then I was. If you want to personalize all of this, if you want to take it deeper, and if you want to guarantee that 2023 is going to be your best year ever, why don't you book a one-on-one with me, a consultation, which is free, where we can talk about what it would look like in your life, how we could tailor make it to you. If that sounds fun, go ahead. There's a link below this video where you can book that consultation. Thank you very much for listening. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.